Welcome back to another Jazz basketball breakdown. Just got done getting beat by the Magic. We missed the previous game against the Hawks, which if you were unfortunate enough to watch that game, you didn't miss much. So we at least had some really good moments in this game. This was a better game of what I'm more looking for out of this team for the rest of the season. We had really good Keyonte George moments. We had a really long stretch to start the second half where Keyonte George was our main primary ball handler, our main player who was running the offense. It was very rare Sexton ran the offense to start the second half, and we were a much better team during those moments. Marketing was getting easy looks, and man, Keyonte George was dominating Jalen Suggs.
So Suggs came out, and as several teams have done since Keyonte kind of took the main steps forward in the season, they've decided that they really need to press him as soon as he crosses half court, which we discussed is a sign of respect.
Yeah.
That they can't let you easily get to the spots you want to on the floor. And the camera is being assisted by Kumba. We'll see if it stays upright. But Suggs decided he was really going to get up into him and make it hard for him to get his spots and make those entry passes. And Keyonte kind of sat back a little bit the first half, but second half, he decided to start attacking it. He did some of the first half too, but second half, he started going after it and going by him. And once he'd get by him a couple of times, he would, just hold him off of that hostage dribble, kind of get whatever he wanted. Or a couple of times he would just kind of do a little bit of that inside out hesitation dribble. And I think we're staying upright. All right. But it was fun to see Keyonte kind of get a little bit of his wiggle, a little bit of his flair game going that second half. And he almost put Wendell Carter on his seat, had him like clicking his heels together. And just both times he kind of missed the shot, so it didn't quite come out as a highlight. But you can tell that he's not just going to be a rookie that sits back and lets you punk him.
And he ends up with like 9 assists tonight. I think he had 19 and 9 tonight. And that's what happens when you let him be the number one option ball handler. Not necessarily number one option. Marketing should always be the number one option on this team right now. But when you allow him to be the primary ball handler, the primary playmaker, you don't just get scoring outbursts. You don't just get high assists. You get both from him, and that's happened several times this year. And that's the thing, we kind of talked about during the game. He doesn't just sit back in these kinds of things. He embraces it. When teams immediately start talking crap on him and start playing physical with him, a lot of young players, rookies, second-year guys, they really kind of turn more into a shell of themselves and kind of disappear in those types of games. And that's how the older veteran, hard-nosed defensive guys, that's how they get these younger players out of the games. Keyonte, you do that to him, and it's just like, all right, Keontae's dropping a double-double tonight. He thrives in that environment, which is so important when you are trying to develop and build a championship team.
And I just want to make the point that Suggs is a legit defender. He's all NBA level defender. And by the end of the game, Keyonte fouled him out.
Yeah, and Suggs got him once or twice, right, where he ends up picking his pocket and stuff. Beyond that, Keyonte dominated that matchup. It wasn't like they went back and forth and back and forth. No. Keyonte, for 90% of that matchup, dominated that matchup.
Yeah, and Suggs hit, good for Suggs, too. He's done a lot better this year where he's really struggled the last couple. Hit some big shots down that fourth quarter for sure. Good for him. As far as their matchup, on paper, this should have been a matchup that Suggs should dominate.
Yeah.
Should dominate. But Keyonte, even though you look at him, he doesn't look like a physically imposing player. He just has the mental makeup of a predator, man. He's just inside. He's a killer. So
I honestly, I think a big thing that helped him with it too is having to play the 3 last year in college, where he's playing against bigger players. I think that's something that would have helped him in these kinds of situations. Now he's leaned up a little bit, but he can take that physicality and loves it. You have to have that personality. You have to love the physicality of it. You have to love the competition. It's part of loving basketball, right?
Yeah.
But there's certain players that embrace the physicality of basketball and love the physicality of basketball. That was something I always loved playing ball. I loved when it got super physical. And Keyonte is a guy you can tell as the game gets more physical, he gets happier, right? He starts having more fun and more fun. When you start trying to knock him down and stuff like that, it's just like he has that kind of ability to where it's exciting. And that's what the season's all about. That's what the rest of the season is about. It is about those kinds of development. It's why we shouldn't be closing halves out or games out with Clarkson, Sexton, and him on the court. I'm okay with one of them on the court with him, but having both of them on the court with him at the same time, it diminishes a lot of the development we are allowing Keyonte George. Every possession down the stretch of these close games that Keyonte George is just standing in a corner is hurting the development of our team. Unless you're doing it with another younger player or marketing or something like that, right?
Sure.
Someone who really is most likely part of the future of a championship build team down the line.
Of the minutes that Keyonte played, what percentage of those minutes do you think that he was the primary ball handler?
I wouldn't put a high number on it.
Tonight in this game,
yeah.
There were long stretches where it was Clarkson and Sexton big time, and he was just standing off. I would say 50% tops.
Tops. And if you take away the first 5 minutes of the third quarter, maybe 20%.
It's the amount of effect he had on the game with the little amount of usage that we feel like compared to what we feel like he should have. Anyways, it tells a story. He enjoys the competition, the physicality. There's also another rookie that's in that category, and there's a game within the game, and I was excited about tonight's matchup because of Hendricks going against Banchero and being matched up with Franz Wagner.
Yes.
Now Wagner flexed on us pretty hard and was finishing at the hole on everybody. He was impressive. He was really nice. And we had a good chance to see Taylor Hendricks battling with Paulo Banchero all game long. And you saw several times with Banchero, complaining to the ref, he's grabbing, he's doing this, and he was really struggling. And down the stretch, they went to that matchup, 4 or 5 times in a row. And that's unbelievably good experience for Hendricks. And a lot of times Hendricks would do 90% of the hard work and have him stopped and stuffed and allow him to kind of pivot and go underneath and not move his feet.
It was almost like he was too heavily trying not to foul.
Right.
It's like once you've got him beat, you just get strong right into that moment. And he the only way he can now get a clean shot up is by doing an offensive foul or fading away.
Yeah. And so, for the majority of that matchup, loved what Taylor Hendricks brought. And you got to see his base foundation of physicality, ability to move his feet, explosiveness, strength, and agility, all kind of things that shouldn't be all packaged together in one, which makes him unique and makes him have the chance to be special.
Yeah. And that's what's hard. And that's what's hard for a lot of people to see is they look at that and they go, well, Banchero scored a bunch of times on him. Down the stretch, he scored over and over on him. We get that. We know that. That's the difference between a star in Banchero and a rookie in Taylor Hendricks. That's if you look at just the moments of Banchero scored on him, then it's like, well, yeah, then he played bad. But there's so many moments within that where Banchero's working his ass off on every single time he has to score. He's not getting easy looks because he's baiting him into a move or anything like that. It's not easy, and that is your goal against those types of players. You're not necessarily just trying to, this guy's not going to score on me ever. There's some players that's just not going to happen. With those types of players, and Banchero's hitting that level already, it is how miserable can you make his life? And you could see it was in his head. You could see it was in Banchero's head. That's a huge part of it. The complaining to the ref constantly, and that frustration and stuff like that. Even if he is scoring, you are doing most of your job. Now you start doing those other things. It's kind of what Tony Jones tweeted out perfectly is everything we are seeing, this high level of Taylor Hendricks that we are seeing on the defensive side of the court and hitting threes and all that stuff, the dude's doing it without really having no idea what's going on. He is nowhere near where he needs to be at that point yet. And so we are seeing the floor of Taylor Hendricks right now. The absolute floor of Taylor Hendricks, and that's exciting.
It's very exciting. Like I said, the combination of skills that makes him unique. And man, I don't know what people's expectations were, but for me, he's lived up to everything that I saw him being last year in college when I thought he would be a great fit with the Jazz. So I've been super stoked about him all along. And then we got to see we're starting to see a little bit more consistent minutes with Sensabaugh, and seeing his, like you commented during the game, is his effort level of wanting to be good and improve the areas where it's been his deficiencies, right? Yep. Anybody with a brain would be able to see last year he was a very good offensive player. Anybody with a brain. But he had the deficiencies on defense in his willingness to work and trail and make runs and try and get back in position when it would be justified not to, right? Is what's exciting, because
realistically
the strength in the offense is there.
There's a lot of moments that you see Keyonte do that. You know, Keyonte has that fight, but there's also a lot of moments where he just kind of gives up on plays. And Sensabaugh rarely gives up on plays on the defensive side of the court. That's really good to see. Man, he starts getting a little bit more comfortable within the offense and stuff like that. He'll get some really good scoring outputs. I don't need you to be a great defender in those moments. I need you to work. I need you to try. And he is giving everything for where he is at, he is giving everything you are asking of him that you could possibly ask of him. He is giving right now.
Yeah. And if he ends up securing a solid role player spot down the road, that's an absolute hit at 28 in the draft.
100%.
Absolute hit.
100%. And you can see in the moments already, there's moments where how easily this dude could be a 6-man type player.
The way that he's obviously physically built for the game. There are times that he is able to force his way through screens, and instead of trying to get skinny and have to kind of finesse his way past the screen, he basically takes the edge off that screen,
right?
Because he's freaking hitting a body bag, man. He's tough that way. So
I'd like to see him get a little bit leaner over the offseason, to have a little bit more bounce, a little bit more explosiveness on his moves and stuff like that. But beyond that, he's above where you're hoping that type of pick is.
Absolutely. The amount of times that that level, the number 28 pick, even lands to be a few minutes type of a role player is very, very slim.
Yeah.
Which is why I was so against the whole Agbaji for a number 27, 28, because
sure.
he's way above that level, which is why I thought that was not a good trade. So if we can get Sensabaugh solid minutes as a role player in the years to come, that's fantastic.
And that's what's funny is there was some random comment in not on our video, in just Jazz community forums and stuff like that, of somebody talking about how we missed on all 3 of our draft picks. And it's like, they're like our only good bright spots right now. I don't know what you're watching, but that's about all we got right now is our rookies.
Yeah, I think sometimes people are like, what's the most ridiculous thing I can do?
I don't know, man. But yeah, I'm super excited. And that's we were talking about is, certain players right now you have to look at, is this guy really somebody as you're building a championship team? We're working on setting up a championship team in 3 to 5 years, being ready to make that run, right? You have to legitimately look at each of these players if they are just here passing, or if they are truly a part of that team. There's some that are very obvious, and there's on each ways, in my opinion. There's some we're not determined yet. I truthfully, as much as I love him, I don't necessarily think you're fully solidified on Markkanen in that either way right now, because of his age and where the development is of the team. My opinion is I think he can play at this level for 10 years, so he should be, but you never know with that type of player because of how things develop. he still has stuff he needs to grow and learn on, right? Right. He needs to, even though he's not getting any calls right now, he needs to embrace the physicality. There's a lot going on there. But anyway, John Collins, I mentioned it to you. John Collins is a guy, the trade, you even said, the trade we got for him, no matter what, was a great deal, right? Putting us where we're at right now is a great deal. Is he now a player that's going to be a part of that team in a couple years down the road? I would be shocked if he is starting with us in that position.
I agree. And you have to kind of lump Kessler into that long term. If we're really trying to put down on paper what the pieces are for a deep playoff run team, is Kessler a starting five? What do you do with him down the stretch of games that are tight, that are close?
Right.
And what's the combination with John Collins? Is John Collins somebody then that can come off the bench? Because by his third year, he's making 25 and some. That actually, by that point, with the salary cap rules and league averages, 25 is kind of a normal, good off the bench player type salary.
Yeah.
But those are the questions, right? Colin Sexton is in that category to me.
To me, you're clear cut. These guys are not a part of the championship team in 5 years, right? Let's say we're legitimately contending in 4 years. The guys that are clear cut to me, they just don't make sense. Are Collins, unless he's coming off the bench, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Taylor Horton-Tucker, but he's not really playing. We're talking the actual rotational minutes. Sexton, Clarkson, and Collins. I don't know if the verdict's in either way on Kessler. We still don't know where the development is there. But the same thing. It is that as a starter or a bench player.
Absolutely. Those are the questions we've got to figure out over the next couple of years. The way that things are kind of regressing with Sexton, I wouldn't mind seeing Dunn put in the starting lineup with Keyonte George, to be honest.
I 100% agree.
The rest of this season, Sexton had a span there where he was burning bright with his assists and looking to include other people in decision making and his shooting, and everything kind of came together and it flashed in a fantastic way for about 40 days,
dude.
And then it's kind of gone back to a little bit, how he was playing before, and kind of his decision making has come back to earth. So,
well, that's the thing. What's
which
funny
is a good 6-player type play.
Which is funny is with a guy like Sexton and Clarkson, it's like, well, they had 6 assists tonight or 4 assists tonight. No shit, he has a 30% usage rate. Any point guard or guard, any combo guard in the NBA, if you give them a 30% usage rate, will stumble into 4 or 5 assists. They will. And so you start legitimately looking at those things and what type of role they're playing. Sexton is not a starter. He's just not. On a true competing team, he's not. He doesn't fit the role of what you're looking for. He wants to be an all-star, and he's just not at that level. So then you have to contain it and make him a 6-man. I think our best lineup is Chris Dunn and Keyonte George. Our best guard lineup is Chris Dunn and Keyonte George. I don't even think that's a question mark. I think that is a clear-cut best guard lineup. And it makes sense because the future that you're developing, one is Keyonte George. You think that Chris Dunn is part of that future as well. We've made that very clear by trading Fontecchio when we had to make a decision between those two. We made that very clear that we think Chris Dunn's a part of that future. So right now, we got 2 guys in Sexton and Clarkson who really aren't part of the future, heavily taking the responsibility of the ball handler and playmaker and things like that. Why would you not start Chris Dunn, who is an elite, all defensive type defensive player, next to a rookie like Keyonte George, who needs a good defender next to him? He does.
And especially because we've gone away from Kessler in the starting lineup.
Yes.
So we would only have kind of one non-shooter, and all the other players can stretch the floor with Taylor Hendricks out there. It makes sense to me.
And you're talking non-shooter. I mean, set shots, Chris Dunn is a very solid shooter. He's just not a guy who's going to create and have anything like that. But you also can't just let him stand wide open. And so, and I mean, hell, you're talking between all your other guards. He's shooting the best percentage.
Yeah,
but it's a different style. It's a different style for sure.
Yeah, you can't really call him a shooter, but
No.
he's kind of covered up some of the holes in his game as he's developed and become a veteran player in the league. So I would like to see that short term over the next few games. I would like to see Sexton move to the bench, have Dunn out there. I guess that means that Sensabaugh would have to run with Clarkson and Sexton and all them and never see the ball. But whatever it is,
it doesn't really matter right now anyway.
So, but man, I love the minutes that Taylor Hendricks is getting. The battles that he had tonight. That's invaluable, man. That's like a whole month of practices right there,
100%.
right?
Against a player at his level, dude.
Yeah, and he's going against Paulo Banchero, who was the Rookie of the Year last year. Was he an All-Star this year?
Yes,
All-Star this year. And I guarantee you, as Paulo Banchero is getting done with the game and he's in the locker room, he's not like, yeah, I flexed on that rookie. He was like, damn it, how come I couldn't do this? I guarantee you he was frustrated.
Yep.
And that's the number one sign that Taylor Hendricks did his job. Now, are there things down the stretch where he faltered on that I think that a year from now he'll be able to flex on and really do well? Absolutely. But
you have to experience this.
Yeah,
first.
You've got to go through it. I'm super stoked about Taylor Hendricks' future. I mentioned it to you. My only concern is his skill set is so much like Ochai Agbaji, and Agbaji was kind of tossed aside. That worries me.
I feel you.
That worries me. So hopefully I'm wrong, but that's my concern.
The difference there is that the front office drafted Hendricks.
A little bit more tied to him.
Yeah, a little bit more tied to a guy that you specifically picked. Whereas he felt more like a throw-in the trade for Donovan Mitchell, and so there is a little difference more in that you have more. There's more skin, right? If you just give up on a guy like Taylor Hendricks, now everyone starts questioning you as a GM. You give up on a guy like Agbaji, you got a first rounder out of him. The way that's is going to be seen is a lot different. So I believe they would handle that differently strictly because of that.
I hope that's different. That's my concern.
Yeah.
I'll be on record for that one. But man, I think that you can say that we'll see how Sensabaugh does. But I mean, as far as with Hendricks and with Keyonte George, you can say that those two have shown nicely in the first 2/3 of the season.
There's consistent moments and over the last 10, 15 games as he's getting more minutes and then back in the starting lineup, you can see, Keyonte George, there's consistent moments of those moments of like, this dude is a star developing right now. He is developing and he is a star in the making, and Tony Jones even tweeted out, there is a world where Keyonte George is a 25 plus point per game scorer. I think there's a world where he's a 25 plus point per game scorer and a 10 plus assist game player. I think that is a world that could exist with Keyonte George, with the development and the work he's willing to put in and the instinctual playmaking and scoring he already has at 20. Dude, these are the games that it's like, man, yeah, we lost. We had great development out of our two young players and really good learning moments for Larry Marketing. He is still trying to understand how to approach teams that treating him as the number one guy and being super physical with him. There's moments of like, where you kind of, your coach or you need to get to the ref and just say, what the hell is going on? I'm getting thrown around every single time I drive. But then there's moments where I need you to be a freaking all-star and / superstar, what we want you to be, and take that shit into your own hands. The refs are going to call it, fine. Post him up, stop letting him move you, and kick his ass because you're stronger than Wagner. You are. Jalen Suggs did it as well. You are stronger than these guys. You have shown that consistently. Get some fight back in it and start showing some freaking pride in what you want to do as a player as well. I think the part of it is the players that are on the team. I do agree with that part of it is the direction that we're going, but he still needs to develop if he wants to hit his ceiling of where we can be with him on this as a championship contender.
Looks like he's not having fun right now. It's it's a situation where he's a little bit down for sure.
Do you think if we've moved Hendricks back into the starting lineup and then we bring Chris Dunn into the lineup and the way we start to run the offense, if he starts to have a lot more fun again?
There's no question. I mean, we could see him go off and all of a sudden click and go on a huge run. But right now he's playing. He isn't acting like an alpha out there. He's not playing like a lead dog, and we need him to be the pace setter that way, and that's tough in an 82 game season, especially when key players and friends just got traded away. It's the nasty part of the business. There's no question he's lacking in a lot of categories right now. So
as long as we can get a contract extension with him over the offseason and everything right now, this right now is every bit as important of a growing part of his career for the Jazz and him than it is with the rookies.
Yeah, he's got to be able to step in and just grab those moments if he's going to be growing in from the argument is he a high level 2 on a championship team or is he evolving into a 1?
Right.
If he's evolving into that 1, we need him to grab it right now.
For sure. Well, we may have struck gold and gotten lucky, and in 3 years, that question may not have to be answered because of Keyonte George. Realistically, and because that potential's there, you need to do everything you can to develop Keyonte George, even if it costs playing some players less minutes that you like.
Amen.
So we'll see. I mean, we got a game Saturday against the Heat, so that's going to be a rough freaking game. I'd be blown away to see it, but I would love to see Chris Dunn back in the starting lineup next to Keyonte George. But yeah, we've some awesome moments tonight from the rookies and the youth development of this team, and so still focusing on that. And I mean, hell, if we keep losing, we might get a really good draft pick this year, and John Collins may find himself being replaced with a draft pick, right? That, we may be replacing either Sexton, depending on where we draft. We could replace Sexton, or we could replace Collins with because Dunn's a big man, right?
Ryan Dunn, yeah, he's like 6'8", 6'9". He grew a ton in college.
And so there's a couple players that, depending on where we draft, really could fill some holes that we have question marks on.
One thing that this class does have, I mean, there are questions on, high level, talent that's as much of a lock as this last draft class was, but there are a lot of 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" guys that are skilled in this draft class. A lot.
Yeah. So that's exciting. Hendricks, as Hendricks bulks up and stuff like that, also may be able to slide into that 4-5, position as well. And so next few months is going to be super exciting, the development of the team and the direction of where we are going. This was an enjoyable game, even though we lost, because of
this was fun.
Yeah, with how much development there was in this game, it was awesome to see. The second half was fun. Third quarter was so fun. So looking for those moments. Let us know what you guys thought of the game. If you went through the miserableness that was the Hawks game, you are free to vent here about that as well.
Get it all out.
We are going to be an exciting weekend. There's Formula One back this weekend. We're big Formula One fans. Dune Part 2 comes out tomorrow. We will be at that. And then we got Jazz game Saturday. So we'll see you guys Saturday. Thanks, guys.